Hey guys, it's James here from eBassGuitar. In today's bass guitar lesson, I want to show you how to create a simple practice routine, even if you're short on time. I'll see you inside the lesson. So today I want to share a system called the 3M practice formula. I wrote about it in my book, The Complete Guide to Technique for Bass Guitar Players, in chapter 21. And it's a system that I've used for about the past 20 years whenever I practice to make it simple and effective. I use this even when I'm really super short of time too. But first off, I'd love to know what's your biggest challenge when it comes to practicing. Do let me know in the comments below. I'd love to find out. So the 3M formula is very simple. It simply stands for mechanics, mind, and music. And whenever I practice, I generally split up into these three areas. So mechanics is anything technical between getting your hands working, building up your speed and your dexterity. Mind is learning something new musically and discovering how it works on the fretboard. And music is just cutting loose and having some fun, jamming, experimenting, and just generally enjoying the instrument. So what I'm going to do now is take you through a mini practice session to show you how I apply these three areas. But first off, what I tend to look for is an overarching theme that I'm working on. So in the mind area of this lesson, I'm going to be working on a device called the 2-note transition, and I'm going to show you that, but this is in the key of D. So it makes sense to practice the mechanics area of this lesson in related to the key of D2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with an exercise to warm up the hands to begin with, and that's the 1 finger per fret exercise. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this in the key of D to begin with. I'm going to put a metronome on because I enjoy practicing to the metronome. Let's put it on at 70 beats per minute and just start off slowly. Just working on every single note, getting a nice firm sound and making sure the time is good with the metronome. And then once I'm comfortable, I'll double it up. Then let's double it up again. Now, there are plenty of variations on the 1 finger per fret exercise. I've got this cheat sheet called the 24 fingers that I often go through, which is inside the Bass Players Action Pack, which you can get completely free over at eBassGuitar. There's a link in the description below, which will give you all the different fingering variations you can try just on that one exercise. So as we're working in the key of D here for the mechanics section of this lesson, it makes sense to practice some D major scales because we're going to be using this in the mind element in just a minute or two. So we're going to practice that. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm metronome on 70 and play a D major scale. Just practice slowly, focusing on your time and then on your sound. Then let's double it up. Double up again. Now let's try 2 octaves of D major. Here. So what I'm always trying to do is just iron out those little glitches, and the more you play those exercises around, the more comfortable you get. So once I'm warmed up, I've got the blood moving and the 2 hands are coordinating really nicely. The next stage is to move on to the mind area of the practice session, and mind is all about learning something new on the fretboard. So in a few days' time, I'm going to be presenting an online seminar on how to create simple fills using a device called the 2-note transition. So what I thought I'd do is practice that up for you now and show you how that works. So we're going to be working on a chord sequence to a backing track called Mr. Countryside, which is simply the chord sequence of D, G, B minor, and A. And you can use any of those 4 notes anywhere on the neck, as long as it's in that sequential order. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a rock feel to begin with, playing a bar of D, bar of A, bar B, and a bar of G using pumping 8th notes. So that's 8 notes per bar or 2 notes per beat, which sounds like this. So that backing track, Mr. Countryside, is available inside the backing track vault inside the BassLab Plus membership. BassLab Plus is my private members training program designed especially for beginner to intermediate bass guitar players. There's a link in the description below where you can take it free for a test drive. Now, the 2-note transition is all about using notes 7 and 8 of the bar to create a little fill. And the great thing about this is we need no music theory knowledge. So we're going to take each of our root notes and then we're going to approach them from 2 half steps or frets below. So if we're approaching the G, we're going to approach it from an F, an F sharp, and a G like that. And this is going to be on notes 7 and 8 of the bar. So let me just demonstrate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. Okay, and that lands us on the first beat of the G chord. And we can take this little framework and use it to create fills for every single chord. So if we're approaching the B minor up here, and I would get the B minor at the 9th fret on the D string, we can approach it using an A sharp, and a B like that. So we could go from the G chord like this, which links up really nicely. And then when we approach the A chord, we can approach that from 2 notes below. So approaching the A, we'd come from a G sharp, and an A like that. So we can end up with this bass line. So 1, 2, 3. And then to get back to the D, which is our key chord, we could approach it from a C sharp, and a D like that. So this is a really simple framework to create some really powerful fills. So let me demonstrate what this sounds like with the backing track. So when I teach the online seminar in a couple of days' time, I'm going to be taking people through a bunch of variations on this over the course of an hour. But I just want to show you one more now. And this is approaching from 2 notes above. So to go from the D chord to the G, our approach notes would be an A flat, and a G like that. So we could do like that. So it's really, really powerful. And then to approach the B, we'd come from using a C sharp, a C natural, and a B. But because music is an art and a science, not absolutely everything works 100% of the time. And that little fill to my ears doesn't sound that great, but it can work in the context of this exercise. So, and then when we are going to the A chord, we can approach it from a B flat, and an A like that. And when we're going back to the D chord, we can approach it from an E flat, and a D like that. So in isolation, the exercise sounds like this. So let me show you what that sounds like in context. as you can see, the two-note transition is a very effective thing that you could practice in the mind area of the 3M practice formula, and will create some really simple and straightforward bass guitar fills. So if you're enjoying this lesson, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Here at eBassGuitar, we release a lesson like this every single week. So make sure you hit the red subscribe button, which is somewhere around the screen, and hit the bell icon too, so you'll be the first to notify when we release a new lesson. So the great thing about the 3M practice formula, which I wrote about in my book, is it can be applied to any practice duration. So even if you've only got 15 minutes a day, you can literally roughly split them into 3 5-minute areas. If you've got an hour, they could be 20-minute chunks. If you've got 3 hours, they could be an hour each. It doesn't really matter. It's just all about getting through the most important elements of a practice routine to make it fun and rewarding. Now, every practice routine, I believe, should just have an element where you cut loose and experiment. I believe an experimentation is up there in the most important areas of practice when we're not even really practicing. One of my teachers once said to me, some of my best practice happened when I didn't know I was practicing. I was just experimenting and having fun, and that's always stuck with me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the chord sequence to Mr. Countryside here, and I'm just going to cut loose. I'm going to have some fun and see where it can go. So just as an indication, I'm going to be looking for wherever I can play this chord sequence, D, G, B minor and A across the neck. I'm going to experiment, and it doesn't matter if I make mistakes. In fact, the more mistakes the better, because I'll be learning what sounds good and what doesn't sound good. So let's have some fun. Guys, that's the end of today's bass guitar lesson. If you've enjoyed this lesson, I've got 2 more lessons I'd love you to check out. The first one is to build on the mind element of the 3M formula, and that is a full lesson on the 2-note transition. So if you'd love to know how to create more simple fills even, make sure you check out that lesson. And the second one is how to play simple songs, and this is great for the music aspect of the 3M formula. So if you want to check those lessons out, there are links in the description below. Cheers from James. I've been James from eBassGuitar.com, and I'll catch you next time.